Hello, Kentucky. Matt Tackett, excited to welcome you to this episode of the KAED Netcast. Now, every edition we have a special guest, and we certainly do today, as we're excited to welcome Dr. Ryan Quarles, Commissioner of the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, to the Netcast. Now, we all know the Commissioner has had a really strong emphasis on economic development and also a partnership with the Kentucky Association for Economic Development. We're going to discuss that. We're going to talk about the Commissioner's vision and Kentucky's potential as the North American epicenter for ag technology. We'll discuss that, and the Commissioner has been in constant communication with the federal government, including Secretary Perdue and Leader McConnell, as the Commonwealth mitigates and emerges from the COVID situation. We'll talk about that and much more. And because he's a great friend to all of us at KAED, we'll also put him on the hot seat to get to know him a little better. So we're very excited to welcome Commissioner Quarles to the Netcast. Okay, so welcome back. As we said, we have an extra special guest here today, Dr. Ryan Quarles, Commissioner of the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, who is obviously a friend to economic development, and we're going to speak on that. We're going to talk about his vision and Kentucky's momentum towards us becoming the epicenter for ag technology in North America, and we're going to discuss the strong advocacy that he has done on our behalf as we mitigate and emerge through the COVID situation, and we want to thank him for that. But before we dive into the weeds, hello, sir. How are you doing, and how is everything with our friends at KDA?
Well, good day to you. It's June. It's dairy month. I hope you're getting a little extra ice cream and milk right now in your diet. But we're doing great. Farmers are out planting across Kentucky, and just very quickly here, COVID-19 more or less shut down a major section of Kentucky's economy, but not agriculture. A lot of people may not realize that we were completely exempt from day one, and our hats are off to all of our farmers and food processors, including meat processors, that have stayed open. And many of my employees at the Department of Agriculture have yet to take a single day off work since COVID-19 really started hitting us. And so we are determined to make sure that although COVID-19 is a public health pandemic, we are determined to make sure that it doesn't turn into a food insecurity issue. And so we're hard at work, and I hope people are supporting local agriculture.
Yeah, no doubt. And what a blessing the industry is to Kentucky, and we're blessed with the farmers all across this Commonwealth. And we'll talk about that. And as we dive in here, and that leads me to thinking, I've heard you say so many times, and I always appreciate this, that you mentioned there are 76,000 farms in Kentucky, and those not only are farms, those are small businesses. And knowing that you have such a strong emphasis on economic development in the department, can you talk about why that's a priority for you and what's being done on that front at KDA?
Well, agriculture just isn't cows, plows, and sows anymore. And we like to remind our friends in Frankfort and Washington, D.C., and sometimes even on the county level, to be honest, that agriculture continues to be a backbone of rural Kentucky. In many of our counties, agriculture may be the biggest part of the local economy. Then even in our urban areas, agriculture continues to punch above its weight class when it comes to job creation. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, we have 76,000 farms. We have about 120,000+ producers, 30% of which are female. We're actually one of the highest states in the country with female farmers, and 10% of all farmers in Kentucky are veterans. So they wore the uniform before they worked out in the field. And when you add up the entire economic impact of agriculture in Kentucky, it's around $45 billion. That's right, $45 billion. And to put this into perspective, there's only one industry that employs more people in Kentucky than agriculture, and that's manufacturing. We're a big part of Kentucky's economy. For whatever reason, sometimes we're overshadowed. But when you look out upon rows of corn or fields of tobacco or fields of livestock, please know that that is economic development, and that when a farmer or an agribusiness decides to expand or hire an additional person, that is no different than, say, Toyota or Lexus adding on to their line in my hometown of Georgetown, Kentucky. So please look at agriculture, ag tech in the lens of economic development. I know that's something that your organization has always been committed to.
Yeah, and I think that's some of the questions or some of the most conversations that we have among our membership is about agriculture and about what that means for any local economy or this Commonwealth. So that's why the partnership that we have with you and how closely integrated that you and Tim are within this organization is so crucial, not only for our members, but for this Commonwealth as a whole. And you know, the emphasis you place on economic development is apparent, and the partnership that you have with KAED is certainly apparent within our association, and our members know that you're a major investor in what we do. You're a part of our business development marketing missions. We only serve Kentucky Proud, which I have the pin on food at our gatherings. That's why we all eat so well. And I know I've gained a little bit of weight during my time here, but you also provide scholarships to agriculture leaders across the state who are connected with economic development so that they can really become integrated into everything that we do in this landscape. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we're so fortunate to continue to have such a strong partnership with the Kentucky Association of Economic Development. And through the leadership of really Tim Hughes in my office, we are providing a $10,000 sponsorship to provide scholarships to help connect Kentucky's farm community with your organization and other organizations. And this is just a way for us to make entry a little bit easier for those across the state. You know, farmers, we're out there working every day. Our work clothes get dirt on them and mud on our shoes, and sometimes we're not able to make meetings at certain times, or perhaps the registration fee may be a prohibition. And so that's really what this scholarship and sponsorship is about. Again, Tim Hughes, my office, has been such a great visionary leader with connecting not just this organization, but others across the state. And our message is clear. We want to make sure that our farm community is elevated onto the mantle at which it deserves. And that means they are part of local economic development, and some of which is not small. You know, you just mentioned Kentucky Proud. Kentucky Proud is such a successful story for our state. It's our state's most identifiable logo. We have 8,000 separate Kentucky Proud members, some of which don't even have ag backgrounds at all, that are choosing agriculture as a way to enter the market. And I would say that our Kentucky Proud program has been an entry area for a lot of Kentuckians when it comes to economic development. Now, we've always been really good at growing crops and raising livestock, but sometimes we need a little bit of help when it comes to marketing that. And so Kentucky Proud is probably the best example of how we have gotten into grocery stores, how we have bolstered our farmers markets, how we continue to have community-supported agriculture, weekly baskets of goods delivered to Kentuckians' homes or picked up. Even during a pandemic, we are not slowing down. We have to keep ourselves fed, and that's another reason why your organization and ours will continue to work together to find opportunities, sometimes right in front of us. All you have to do is flip over a stone sometime to figure out what you're looking for.
Yeah, and we just need to encourage people, and Kentucky does a good job of this. Identify that Kentucky Proud food wherever you're doing your shopping and pick it up and take it back, because it's not only the best food that you're going to get, we know that, but like in our organization, when we source out Kentucky food products, we trace it directly back to the farm and the family. So
and one of the neat things during this pandemic is that we know that Kentucky Proud sales are going up. We have great participation in our farmers markets. If you are a farmer that was selling freezer beef off of at a roadside market, chances are you're sold out, and you probably had the best couple months you've ever had. And so we're really trying to use the pandemic and have a silver lining to say support Kentucky's farmers and agriculture businesses as well. And it's been very successful so far, and we're seeing that nationwide, and we're crossing our fingers. We don't want this commitment to local agriculture to be a fad. We want it to be something that's permanent in society as we work our way out of this pandemic.
Yeah, and we'd love to help you in any way there. And we'll talk a little bit about Kentucky Proud later, but on the scholarship recipients, you've connected us with just incredible leaders that were doing great things across Kentucky that are now kind of integrated within KAED, that are leading initiatives that we do. Pat Hargadon, the Farm Bureau, is one. Keith Lowry with Lowry Farms is another. And there are about 10 to 15 that are now part of the fabric of KAED, and they've led us to, at our meetings, we're not only kind of coming together and doing a traditional conference, but we're identifying strategic verticals where we're bringing the stakeholders in and they're advising us on what our strategies need to be. And we've added an agriculture strategic committee because of our opportunity to do so now because of you. So I appreciate that. And, you know, I've never told you this, but one of the more things that's worried me during my time at KAED, we reimagined our conferences a little bit since my time here. So the first one that we did, and you began providing these Kentucky Proud luncheons for us, or dinners. You came and you were the keynote speaker, but we had about 50 people there. And I was always a little embarrassed about that, especially because you were so generous with your time. But the next one, we had 250. And the last two since then, we've had 300. So that wouldn't be possible without your leadership. So I just wanted to thank you for that while we're together.
Well, we appreciate that. And, you know, if there's an old saying in Kentucky agriculture, if you feed them, they will come.
Absolutely. Us too. So that's actually as much credit as I take for growing our conference. The food's a big part of it, and our surveys actually show that. So, and you mentioned Proud, and we know how important that is. But what about not a spinoff, but another part of that, the Appalachia Proud initiative that's now running and successful? Can you share that a little bit?
You know, we're so happy and proud that the Appalachia Proud program is a subset of the Kentucky Proud program. So it's kind of a banner logo that is specifically reserved for those who are growing or processing there in the identified Eastern Kentucky counties. It more or less follows the 5th congressional district with Congressman Hal Rogers. And so what we want to do here is that Appalachia is known for great cooking. It's known for always having a great farm to table scene, because every time I go there, I feel like I'm going home. They honor agriculture, and you really see some products that come out of Eastern Kentucky that really put Kentucky on the scene, whether it's jams and jellies, whether it's food that Kentuckians can identify and be proud of. And so we have a special logo that only they can use, and we hope that this is used in that big basket of goods, or that toolbox that you all can use at the local level to say, hey, if you're interested in not only just being Kentucky Proud, but if you're in one of these Eastern Kentucky identified counties, we have a special program just for you. We know it's very popular among the farmers markets. We think that it has a lot of potential yet to gain. And just this past year at SOAR, we made a big announcement on stage to expand the program to make sure that it gets the emphasis that it deserves. And so if anybody has any questions about Appalachia Proud or Kentucky Proud, we have a very simple website. It's just kyproud.com. And there it's our go-to source for everything Kentucky Proud. And if you have any additional questions, please contact my office. If you want to become a Kentucky Proud member, we can walk you through those steps. It's easy. You can do it online. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact our office.
Yeah, I speak on these netcasts. You know, I'm from Eastern Kentucky and very proud of that. But I love going home, figuring out what I'm going to eat, and I love seeing that Appalachia Proud logo, and we look for that. And I think on a greater scale, our membership really does a good job of showcasing what's special and unique to Kentucky and why we're great, and highlighting all the Kentucky Proud objects. And we literally take that stuff all over the world, and it's just such an important differentiator for us. So just, you know, we thank you for that. And I'll switch gears here a little bit. So on every one of these netcasts, and Tim Hughes has, I think, watched all of them, we'll usually ask our economic developers, what's your definition of economic development? So I won't ask you, but usually all of our answers, the language is different, but they all end at some sort of enhancement of quality of life. And I say that because you have a really holistic approach to leadership at KDA that is all about quality of life for Kentuckians. So can you talk about that a little bit, and some of the innovative and holistic encompassing things that you're doing?
For me, economic development is an all of the above approach, where the main goal is to build a Kentucky that has an environment that's business friendly, that focuses on quality of life issues, whether that be workforce achievements, education, health, access to health care, and also an environment where if you're an entrepreneur and you want to take a risk, whether it be on a farm, whether it be on Main Street across Kentucky, that you have as good of a shot, if not better, than any other place in America. A lot of things that really blow me away while serving in public office is the continued innovation and entrepreneurial spirit of Kentuckians. We're used to getting by through hard times. A lot of times on the farm, it's about getting the duct tape and baling twine out and fixing a problem. I think the same can be said with economic development. And I will say this, when it comes to agriculture, we can punch above our weight class. And I think that we have a story that sometimes we don't share often enough, that we are a state that has incredible diversity, incredible variety of crops and livestock, but also we have the critical mass that can make Kentucky the agriculture hub or agriculture technology hub of America. But when it comes to economic development, it's about having quality jobs. It's about increasing the quality of life. But it also means that every Kentuckian, regardless of age or background or where they come from, has the opportunity to succeed in life.
You know, as I'm becoming more familiar with Kentucky's farmers, thanks to you, we talk a lot about innovation in this association, and it drives a lot of what we're doing strategy-wise and education-wise. But I'll tell you who talks about it the most is Kentucky's farmers. They're always asking, what's next? What's the technology? They're always innovating new, efficient ways to do what they do, and that's such a blessing. That's why we're so strong in Kentucky. But I've really found Kentucky's farmers to be at the leading edge of pushing the industry forward on technology. So we really appreciate the opportunity to work closely with them. We'll drastic switch here, but you know, we've mentioned Tim Hughes a couple of times, and we've all worked closely with him. And Tim's been on our marketing trips, specifically on Select USA, which is a foreign direct investment event, foreign countries through their Department of Commerce's or whatever they're called overseas will verify that a business wants to locate in America. So Tim goes there with us, and there's a lot of agriculture projects there. Tim and I also, we recently had dinner at the Japanese ambassador's residence in Washington. So I say all of that because you've obviously placed a really strong emphasis on international trade at the department. So can you talk about what's being done there and why we're better positioned as a Commonwealth because of your leadership?
If you're pro-agriculture, you have to be pro-trade. Whether you like it or not, Kentucky agriculture depends on foreign markets. We do a really good job of getting our crops and livestock into domestic markets. But if you really want to talk about expansion and growth and increasing the farm income in the back pockets of our farmers, you have to have access to foreign markets. And look, COVID-19 is throwing a wrench into a lot of our plans for 2020. 2020 is a year of emphasis on international trade. We have a new trade agreement, more or less, with Japan right now. We're rewriting our trade agreement with the United Kingdom right now, which may end up being a platform for further negotiations with the EU. China is implementing phase 1, and as best as we can tell, they have a good faith effort, despite the pandemic, of buying more American and Kentucky agricultural goods. We have developing nations that are increasingly buying American farm products, specifically in the Asian Pacific Rim. We're starting negotiations with India right now, the world's second biggest population, and they're starting to open up their economy a little bit more. And so there's tremendous opportunity across the globe for agriculture. And one of the cool things Kentucky has that no other state has, to the best of my knowledge, is that when you travel around the world, or say even travel outside of Kentucky, and you say, I'm a Kentuckian, they ask you about 3 things. They ask you about Kentucky bourbon, which is an agricultural product. It's liquid corn. They ask you about horse racing with the Kentucky Derby, and exporting horses is big business for us, especially from Kentucky. And then the third thing they ask you about is Kentucky Fried Chicken, which I know a lot of people find humorous, but that's an agricultural product as well. And so when we go out to the rest of the United States, or go to conferences, or travel abroad on a trade mission, unlike other states that have to kind of define themselves, Kentucky is already defined by signature agriculture products. And that's one reason why we are the first administration since really Billy Ray Smith to have a staffer who's focused on international trade, and that's Tim Hughes. I'm really proud of his work. I know that COVID-19 has really complicated our objectives for 2020, but in many ways we're trying to strengthen this as we go along. And we will be participating with some of these trade negotiations, whether it be on-site, boots on the ground in other countries, or virtually as well. Later this year, I'll be president of all the ag commissioners in America. It's called NASDA. And one of the duties that I'll be having is to host what's called a tri-national accord. And so we have another trade agreement, the USMCA, the largest trade deal in U.S. history, which was recently inked. Every year, the president of NASDA basically hosts a trade agreement summit between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And so I'll be hosting that from Washington, D.C., whether it's in person or virtually. And so Kentucky will have a seat at the table, no matter what, this year when it comes to tweaking USMCA as it becomes implemented.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that too. I wanted to speak on that later because that's a great opportunity for the Commonwealth. And, among all of the things that you're doing, we appreciate you taking on that role on our behalf. So thank you for that. And you mentioned what is Kentucky known for in America or across the world. And, when we go out and we're doing business development trips or marketing missions, there's a lot of data that we can give about why it makes sense to do business in the Commonwealth. But what these consultants or what these CEOs, what they want to know is what's special about Kentucky? What's unique? What's the quality of life look like? What's our different differentiators? And Kentucky, we're such an iconic state. And this is the truth. On slide 1 of the presentation that I give, and we've done this all over the world, is a handful of pictures. Bourbon, a bunch of horses, Colonel Sanders, we leverage that, and Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
Bluegrass music. So out of those 5, 3 are agricultural related projects, and we're so proud of that, and that's just such a good lead in for what's meaningful conversation. So you're right on there. And we talked a lot about innovation in ag tech. So what are some success stories as we kind of emerge as that North American epicenter?
Well, Pierce Lyons was a big influence on my life, and he's left a legacy. And if you talk to his son, Dr. Mark Lyons, he'll tell you that his dad left more ideas than they can implement. But one of the things that he challenged Alltech and the ag community was say, why not Kentucky? Why not Kentucky when it comes to being the ag tech capital or hub in the United States? When you think of computers and software, you think of Silicon Valley. When you think about healthcare innovations, you think of Boston. And so you kind of have these different hubs or mini hubs across the United States. But when you say, where's ag technology centered out of? There's a void right now. There's some states that have some specializations in this or that. It's really kind of a hodgepodge. And so over the past year and a half, we have focused on creating a platform in a first draft to make sure that Kentucky can live up to its potential to be the ag tech capital of the United States. We're currently working with the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture, which is leading our strategic plan, which will be published later this summer. We have a world-class consultant working for us who actually has Kentucky roots that taught at Harvard Business School, who has consulted around the world. She's amazing. We also have been working with the city of Lexington, but not just Lexington. I don't want there to be an impression that this is exclusive, but this is something that can apply statewide. We've also been working with the Cabinet for Economic Development now through 2 different governors. And it's important to have one plan on ag technology. And let me just give you a couple examples about why we think we can not only market ourselves, but also live up to what I hope would be, when we look back years from now, the first steps on the moon when it came to really marketing Kentucky as ag tech. Number 1, we're already a big ag tech player. You mentioned earlier, some farmers that are already implementing technology on the farm. We have always been a state that had first adopters. We got a network of young farmers through the Kentucky Ag Leadership Program that we know are always pushing the limits. Number 2, Kentucky agriculture is incredibly diverse. Unlike some of our friends out in the Midwest, which may have 4 or 5 crops, which dominate ag retail cash receipts. Here in Kentucky, we have close to 400 different crops and livestock being grown here, which easily puts us in the top 5 in terms of diversity in the United States of what we're growing and raising in our state. The next thing, we're already home to incredible livestock, incredible agriculture events. Number one is the National Farm Machinery Show. It's the largest indoor farm equipment show in the world. It's held in Louisville, Kentucky. We have 300,000 people from literally around the globe come to what I would consider would be the equivalent of the Detroit Auto Show for what's new and great with next generation vehicles. They're already coming here and displaying, and it used to be a show of what's the biggest machine you can build. Now, more often, it's a lot of entrepreneurs selling upgraded software, talking about precision agriculture, et cetera. So that's already happening in our state. We also have the largest purebred livestock show in the world, North American, and we have an incredible Kentucky State Fair as well. And so to close out this answer, we're already kind of ahead of the game when it comes to having an inventory of assets that are meaningful when it comes to becoming the ag tech hub. We have an amazing land grant system with both KSU and UK, but we also have comprehensive universities like Moorhead and EKU and Murray and Western and others that have great ag programs. So we have a strong connection with higher education. And of course, we have Alltech, an anchor company, which has a presence in 120 countries. They're already in the innovative spirit, and Alltech is really a driving force behind this plan for ag technology. And so I'll leave you 2 examples of modern day recent successes. We have a $90 million greenhouse being built in Eastern Kentucky in Rowan County right now with App Harvest. My office, Tim and I have been involved with them for over 3 years now. We finally found them a home in Moorhead, and so they're currently under construction. That we believe that will be the largest greenhouse in North America, and perhaps the first of many to come. And another one that we met with recently is Danamere Scientific, based out of their Kentucky location is in Winchester, and so the application of replacing plastic that's biodegradable happening right here in Kentucky. There's countless other examples. I know I've been a little long-winded on this one, but I'm so excited because it's not just about the production of food and fiber. It's also about adding value here in Kentucky, creating jobs, and increasing that quality of life that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so much advantage here, so much opportunity, and this is the future. And we can talk about this all day, but shout out to Bob Helton, who I know has been a big part of that project. And Bob is on our board, and just incredible leadership there. And I'm following that project closely, and Bob and I talk about it all the time. And I'll tell you what, for me, if you want to be blown away, go to the Alltech One conference.
Yes,
it's incredible what they're demonstrating there and what's happening in this space right here in the Commonwealth. So we have a relationship with Alltech too. They're one of our major partners. So just the One conference is really something to see. We bring in people all over the world to talk about ag technology and the innovation there. And we'll talk about this later too, but I'm glad you mentioned the College of Ag at UK. Our gang knows this. We have a really strong relationship with the College of Ag, and they're leading in a lot of our strategies post-COVID right now. So I'll look forward to mentioning that here in a second. But we're recording this on June 5th. So I think this will go out next week. But I say that this morning we have sent out the announcement of the land forums that are back for the 4th year. So, and we encourage, you need to be at those land forums. You need to be part of the conversation, led by the department and Cam, who's a partner of ours. So can you talk about those and maybe some major takeaways that you've had as now this will be your 4th year leading these?
Well, we're so excited to announce a series of land meetings, and every year they only get better. The whole idea here is to live up to its name. LAND stands for Linking Agriculture for Networking and Development. We want to make sure that not just our manufacturing base, but also our business base knows about agriculture in their own backyard, and vice versa. We want to make sure that our farm community knows about what's going on in their region. And these land meetings are set up where there'll be a panelist of farm or agribusiness related success stories, almost always from that region. We also have a panel of manufacturers or business development folks from that region as well. And what it's about is really telling the stories and connecting them. Sometimes we hear from businesses saying, if only I could source XYZ product, only to find out that product is being grown maybe the next county over, or maybe even in that county, and they don't even know about it. One of the best examples of this is that we're having a growing bourbon industry, right? And so the need for more barrels and stave makers has really become apparent. And as we speak, in June of 2020, we have another stave company looking to expand. And so that's an example of where agriculture, and we believe timber and wood products are agriculture as well, are connecting with our growing bourbon industry. But that's a very big example, but sometimes you don't even know about maybe some craft makers that are in your backyard that maybe they just need access to selling their product at a main street store with their local tourism board, et cetera. And Tim Hughes is the brainchild behind this. He's done such a great job of connecting us, not just with our manufacturers with CAM, but also Main Street, Kentucky. And so we encourage you to join. The in-person ones have great Kentucky Proud lunches. And we hope that this year is as successful as the previous ones, and we have every reason to believe that it will be just like that.
Yeah, we're looking forward to being at every one of those. We encourage our members to take a registration on CAM's website. We sent out the email on June 5th. If you're watching and want to go back through your inbox, please go to those. I know I've learned a lot, and we usually have our economic developers as part of the audience of those too. So just really appreciate the good work that you all do and the partnership with CAM there as well. So shout out to Lee Lingo, who's an expert on our board, a great friend of mine. I know we're running short on time. I want to talk about just a couple of other things before we put you on the hot seat. I don't know if they put you on that, but I think we've all been really inspired by the work that you're doing in the Kentucky Hunger Initiative. So can you share a little bit about that?
Well, in 2016, my first year in office as Ag Commissioner, I decided to do something that KRS doesn't require us to do, something that our regs don't require us to do, but something that the compassion in my heart really led me towards, and that's to do a better job of providing for all Kentuckians. And that includes those Kentuckians who suffer from food insecurity. 1 in 7 Kentuckians have trouble accessing food at some point throughout the year. 1 in 5 Kentucky school children, K through 12, are considered food insecure. And so as a farm kid who grew up with a backyard garden that we didn't grow up rich, but we were rich with friends and we always had food on our table, I knew that as the representative of the farm world, where we have an abundance of crops, an abundance of livestock, and where we export food around the world, we can do a better job of taking care of those less fortunate here in Kentucky. So we started the Kentucky Hunger Initiative. Over the past 3 years, we've changed Kentucky's donation law. We now have the strongest food donation law in the country. We've had organizations like Farm Credit Mid-America and CoBank donate freezers. We have over 200 freezers that have been donated to our food banks across Kentucky, many of which had to refuse food donations because they didn't have a place to safely store this food. And so we've really have started to make real significant impacts on reducing food insecurity in Kentucky. We're very proud of that. We work with our food banks, Feeding Kentucky, Glean Kentucky, and Hunters for the Hungry. But if you fast forward to February and March of 2020, everything changed with COVID. With 40% unemployment in Kentucky, we have seen a 30% increase in the number of Kentuckians going to food banks and food pantries because they're out of work. They don't have an income. And we want to make it be known that if you are having trouble, if you know somebody that needs a little help, please utilize your food banks and your food pantries. That's why they're there. And due to the work of the Kentucky Hunger Initiative 3 years ago, we've done some pretty cool stuff during COVID that other states, I think, are envious of. Number one, we have a Farms to Food Banks program where we literally help buy up products from Kentucky farmers that would otherwise just rot in the field. These are products that couldn't make it to a grocery store. Maybe there was an abundance. Maybe there's a small blemish on a cucumber, which makes it still perfectly edible, just didn't make it to the grocery store. And so we had Kentucky Farm Bureau donated $500,000 out of the gate. The biggest donation we've ever facilitated the Hunger Initiative to our food banks. And due to that donation, we're getting Kentucky Proud products into the hands of those who need it most. And here's just a couple of examples. We had over 10,000 pounds of Purnell's Old Folks Country sausage delivered to our food banks. It's good. It's that great sausage you can find at Cracker Barrel. We had 5,000 pounds of Kentucky Proud cheese come out of Todd County. We had 560,000 eggs donated at no cost by Cal-Maine's Foods. We also have milk being donated. And just last week, we had 48,000 hamburgers donated on National Hamburger Day. And so we're having some fun with this. But at the same time, despite tough times out on the farm, the generosity of Kentucky agriculture, the generosity of our commodity and livestock groups are really rising to the challenge to keep Kentucky fed. This is a win-win because not only are you helping get products that may end up in the landfill going to our food banks, but at the same time, as the economy starts to reopen and people go back to work, maybe these Kentuckians that maybe had a taste of Kentucky Proud will become long-term consumers as well and go out of their way to support a farmer's market or a grocery store or a food item or a restaurant that supports Kentucky Proud. And so for us, the Kentucky Hunger Initiative has really earned some stripes during COVID-19, and we're nationally recognized. And for me, it's all about connecting our agriculture world with those less fortunate, and I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's inspirational, and we thank you for that. And we've been having fun with these netcasts. We've been diving into the weeds, but also having fun. So one of the things that we've done, and we didn't plan on this, it's just happened. We've been figuring out where Kentucky's best hamburger is throughout all of these. I like to ask people, where's your favorite place to eat? And somehow we get to burgers. I talk about Billy Ray's and Prestonsburg a lot, but I think we just found where Kentucky's best hamburger is. Anything served by the Hunger Initiative. So
that's right. That's right. And that's a dangerous question to ask the ag commissioner.
Yeah,
start singling it out. But I will say that if you go to Kroger, and we hope to get in other grocery stores, you can buy 100% Kentucky Proud ground beef produced by Kentucky farmers. It's a great product. We actually have Kentucky Proud lamb burger too, and usually right there on the same shelf. And so that's just two products that you can find. But the best hamburger is one that's produced by a Kentucky farmer.
Yeah. So thanks for diving into the Hunger Initiative. We're so proud of that. And I think just a couple more questions here, but we work very closely with the Department of Ag, Dr. Cox, Dr. Allison Davis at SEDIC, and we're focusing on positioning Kentucky as best as we can to mitigate and emerge through this through a series of business retention strategy and implementation. And we find that the agriculture network is so well positioned to assist and to lead us on that. So through the extension, through the innovation, through the passion, just the work ethic that exists in that industry. So can you talk a little bit about that and how ag is leading us through kind of the mitigation of this? And then I'll follow up on a question on what you're doing specifically, because I know you've stayed in constant contact with Leader McConnell, Secretary Perdue, through all the channels that you have, the advocacy that you're doing.
We're fortunate that in Kentucky, we have a strong and unified agriculture community. As a kid, I probably didn't realize it or appreciate it, but when I would go to agriculture events, whether it be Kentucky Farm Bureau's annual convention or the state fair, I always grew up knowing the farmers and farm families all across Kentucky. And when I was in college, it was the same way. My classmates, sometimes I'd already been on their farm before I even knew ag class with them. As a legislator, I served on the ag committee. We all know each other. And as ag commissioner, we play a critical role of unifying Kentucky. And we have so many assets, whether it be an extension office in every single county, whether it be strong agriculture programs at our higher education institutions, a gigantic 4-H and FFA footprint across our state. We have a lot of special things in Kentucky that when I get to talk with other agriculture commissioners, we have it pretty good here. And in some other states, sometimes there's turf wars between different agriculture groups. We don't really see that here in Kentucky. It's not to say we don't have our disagreements, but it is the Kentucky way to unify each other. And so, for instance, on this ag tech push, when we get people on board, they get on board. With the Kentucky Hunger Initiative, with a $500,000 donation, that would not occur if it was not for the strong agriculture community that already exists in Kentucky. That when we decide to tackle something, we go after it. And it's something that really is an asset in our state that a lot of folks may not fully appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. And through your conversations with Secretary Perdue or Leader McConnell, I know you've been part of CARES Act conversations, for example. What's being done there because of your leadership, and maybe dive into that for just a sec.
So COVID-19 really put an emphasis on agriculture. You know, everybody has to eat. A lot of Kentuckians are spending more time at home. They're learning how to cook again, like me. And it really put a lot of stress on our food production system that we really haven't seen since World War II. And long story short, as restaurants closed or changed their business models, as a lot of Kentuckians went to the grocery store more often, we really had to change our food production system, and you can't do it overnight. And long story short, we've seen bottlenecks at some of our meat processing facilities in the Midwest, which caused livestock that should have left Kentucky to remain on the farm. What we're seeing is a tremendous amount of loss at the farm level. We're seeing it in our grains. We're seeing it in our livestock. Really, the whole of agriculture has been hurt by COVID-19, with the exception of a really bright spot with local agriculture in Kentucky Proud. And so we're very fortunate that the CARES Act funding, helped spearheaded by Leader McConnell and then implemented by Secretary Perdue, which I speak to almost on a weekly basis, has included some benefits for Kentucky farmers. And how big of a loss are we looking at? If you are a Kentucky cattle farmer, we have 38,000 of them in our state. You've lost between 30 and 40% of the value of your herd. It's going to take us the better part of a year to clean up the backlog of cattle in our state. And so there's going to be an incentive for those who have cattle on their farm. Same thing for hogs. 30 to 40% of the value of hogs lost. The profitability has been evaporated. Farmers are taking it on the chin. We're also seeing it in corn and soybeans, marketable crops that otherwise would hopefully have a market by now, being adversely affected. And so I would encourage you that if you know a farmer that is not quite familiar with what's called the CFAP program, there's one simple website that can answer almost all your questions. It's called farmers.gov. And there, it can be a resource. You can start your application. The Farm Service Agency will be implementing this program. And as of last night, as of the beginning of June, Kentucky ranks, I think, 5th or 7th in the nation with getting farmers signed up on this. These benefits are there because of the adverse economic effects of the coronavirus. So please sign up. It's not as complicated as you think, but please have patience as well, as our 76,000 farms, 120 plus thousand producers are putting their paperwork in. The Farm Service Agency is there to work for you, but check out farmers.gov. This won't solve all of our problems, but it's a great first step forward with helping mitigate the loss on Kentucky family farms.
Okay, yeah, farmers.gov, and a quick follow-up to that. We know that you're providing leadership on a national level through a livestock processing group. Can you talk about the discussions and the strategies that are emerging from there?
Well, every week we are in contact with not just all the Ag Commissioners of America, but also regional efforts. And so what we're trying to do is evaluate the weak spots in our food production system, which were somewhat magnified during COVID-19. Now, they're in a lot better spot than they were, say, a month ago. Meat's being processed. But one of the things here in Kentucky is that a lot of folks may not realize is that, say if you're in the beef cattle business, almost all your beef cattle in Kentucky, by the way, we're the biggest beef cattle state east of Mississippi, ends up in the Midwest. We finished up. And so we started a conversation with the Ag Development Board, which oversees our tobacco settlement money. And we set aside $1 million of money for any Kentucky-based processor that wants to expand production. There's different categories. I won't go through those, but the goal here is to increase what we call kill capacity or production capacity at our Kentucky-based processors. Most of our 27 or so USDA inspected facilities are mom and pop stores. They're pretty small. A lot of them are operating out of very old facilities, but that's not the case with all of them. Like Chop Shop there in Eastern Kentucky is a modern facility doing a good job. But we want to help increase the kill capacity, because right now, as Kentuckians are exploring local agriculture, if you're a farmer and you want to get your livestock processed and you don't currently have an appointment, you're waiting until January of 2021 until we can find a slot for you. And so we want to help correct that. Ideally, we can get a couple medium-sized processing plants located in Kentucky, and we hope that they're run by Kentuckians. And that's what the goal of this incentive program is all about. And we expect that we know there's high interest in this, but we expect there to be some major announcements in 2020 when it comes to expanding meat processing in Kentucky. We've been talking about this since I was a kid in the farm world, and this is a top tier priority for my second term. And I think coronavirus has finally put everybody on the same page with saying, hey, we need to be more aggressive about expanding meat production in Kentucky. And so that's our goal, and we're working every day. And I think we're going to see some success this calendar year.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And, we've had a long conversation here, and I could talk to you all day, and so could our members. But we know that the holistic approach and the successes that you're having are so impactful for this Commonwealth. And annually we celebrate that and we demonstrate that at our state fair. And that's our members and to this Commonwealth. So news on the state fair this year, is there anything you can share?
Yes, so I sit on the state fair board, and we are determined to have a 2020 state fair. Now, let me be very clear up front. This is not going to be the state fair even under the most optimistic conditions that we're used to. We're not going to see the massive crowds. We know there's a lot of Kentuckians that still will not feel comfortable going to this event, but we want to have a state fair that's somewhat of a throwback, one that really honors the traditional agriculture roots that Kentucky has, that celebrates agriculture. And so we are pushing really hard. And the State Fair Board unanimously approved, let's say, a first draft of a proposal, which we sent to the governor's office to be signed off on, that really emphasizes livestock showing. It also may contain a few other aspects of a state fair that make it seem more normal, but we don't want to have an asterisk next to 2020. We think we can pull this off. We have 700 or so acres in downtown Louisville, plenty of space to spread out. A lot of our county fairs are canceled or are canceling across Kentucky. And so a lot of our 4-H'ers and FFA'ers who used to show at a county fair don't have that opportunity. And so we actually already changed our rules at the state fair. You don't have to qualify at a qualifying event. You can show up and show immediately at the state fair. And so we're going to work with the governor's office. We know that our first draft is probably imperfect, and so we got some give and take to give. But we think that if the Kentucky Derby can be pulled off just a couple weeks after the state fair, that we can have a modified state fair as well. Kentucky agriculture is smart enough to socially distance. Participants are not touching each other like with youth sports. And so we are going to try our best to have a state fair that we can be proud of in 2020.
Yeah, something I look forward to every year, and so do our members, and this is just such a draw for the Commonwealth. So thank you for that. I'll be there right along with you in 2020. So enough with the softball questions, Commissioner. It's time to go on the hot seat. I hope you don't mind, but I've only got, these can get people in trouble sometimes, but I've only got 3 for you today. So first, what's your favorite bourbon?
Oh, I can't answer that. I work with 70 plus distilleries across our state. We have new ones popping up. But if you were to put me on the spot, I would say it's the bourbon that uses the most Kentucky corn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There you go. All right.
I can't.
Safe answer.
Well, I don't answer it anymore either. So we have a partnership with the Distillers Association. So they supply the bourbon on our marketing events. And the rule there is, look, you're going to take every label. It's all equal. It's all my favorite as well.
And Matt, give me 1 second. Watch this.
Oh.
Not to pick favorites, but this is what Kentucky bourbon's about. It's about Kentucky corn, 16 million bushels each year.
That's right.
So there you go.
Just now for our thumbnail for this. Okay, here's another difficult one. Blame Tim Hughes. What's your favorite tractor?
Oh, this one's easy. Alice Chalmers, and I happen to have one right here on my desk as well. Big Orange Crush. They're the first tractor company to have rubber wheels. The first tractor company to have a tractor that came off the line with 100 horsepower, which was a D21. First tractor company to have a live PTO. And so I know it may not be the most common tractor brand these days. They did kind of go out of business in the 1980s, but they're still alive underneath the AGCO brand. But when my grandfather came back from World War II, he started our family farm back with an Allis-Chalmers WD, and that's the tractor. You might see me in parades on it. That's a tractor I have that I use and try to showcase. But there's not many of us orange people left, but we focus on quality, not quantity.
Yeah. How old is the model you have on your desk there?
Oh, that would have come out in the late 60s and 70s. But the tractor that I have is a World War II era WD. And so I could talk all day about this, but Allis-Chalmers was the biggest tractor company up through the 60s. And it wasn't until John Deere overtook them in the 60s with basically their 40/20 model. But Allis-Chalmers, you talk to your grandparents, they're familiar with that tractor.
Okay. I've got an old model similar to that, an old Ford.
I've been accused of living in the past, I guess.
Well, that was a good one. Thanks, Tim. Okay, last one. What's your favorite non-ag related hobby?
Oh, well, I'm actually about to get started on some dry stone masonry here at the office. I'm building a new entrance. I grew up in central Kentucky in Scott County with those amazing rock walls, and I happen to have had some mentorship by a stonemason, and so I love repairing old rock walls. Less than 10% of the stone fences in central Kentucky still exist. And when Kentucky went from dirt roads to gravel roads, guess where they got the rock? They chewed up and pulverized these beautiful stone fences. There's no concrete in it, no mortar. That's one of my favorite hobbies. And so it teaches you patience. But other than that, I'm an outdoors guy. I like to hike, I like to fish, and I love shooting guns.
Okay.
You can probably tell.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, we made it. You're off the hot seat. So we appreciate your time, Commissioner. This has been a fascinating conversation. Appreciate it, all that you do and the leadership and just being part of our family. So thank you, sir. And any parting words before we leave?
Well, we appreciate what you do, what your organization does. We see bright days ahead of us, and that starts with getting our economy back open, getting Kentuckians back to work, and starting new businesses in this really unique period of human history. And I think that Kentucky has a lot of potential when it comes to putting agriculture in a driver's seat of economic development.
Yeah,
thanks so much.
We're moving because of people like you. So thank you.